Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick Lepri, the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 3 top 5 streaming quarterbacks for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, I'm going to be going in depth into 5 quarterbacks that I believe to have positive matchups for week number 3 of the 2021 fantasy football season to help you get the win this week. But before we get on into the deep dive, the in-depth breakdown of these quarterbacks, I'd like to ask if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying it, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below, and whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure to hit that like button down below. I hope you guys are appreciating the content that we put out, and the best way for you guys to help us out is by clicking that like button as well as that subscribe button. Before we get into it, I would also like to ask you guys a quick question. Who is your guys' top streaming quarterback option for week number 3 of the 2021 fantasy football season? Pause the video right now. Let me know down below in the comments, and then we're going to get right on into the video. So my number 1 streaming option of the week, now these guys are all relatively close in my opinion, but my number 1 guy is Kirk Cousins of the Minnesota Vikings going up against the Seattle Seahawks in Minnesota. Now Kirk Cousins has been on an absolute tear. He is on fire like he was in NBA Jam. He finished as the quarterback number 5 this week, throwing 32 times for 22 completions with 3 total touchdowns, as well as rushing for an unexpected 35 yards. With such a loaded offense, it should honestly be no shock that Kirk Cousins is able to do this, even though with that same loaded offense last year, Kirk wasn't putting up these amazing numbers. He's got Justin Jefferson. He has Adam Thielen. He has this Osborne fella who's been relatively solid recently. They also obviously ended up losing Irv Smith, which in my opinion was going to hurt them a lot, but it didn't really seem to matter at all because they're still a perfectly fine team in the red zone. They also have Dalvin Cook. Now, Dalvin Cook is banged up. He got banged up in last week's game. Now, does that mean he's going to miss this week? Maybe, maybe not. If it was my opinion, if I'm going to share how I feel, I think Dalvin Cook is going to suit up this week and be perfectly fine up against Seattle. But if he was not to play, then that would mean that, hey, maybe this offense is looking to throw the ball a little bit more. On paper, when you're looking at this matchup, you could think that this is going to be a pass-heavy attack between both teams because the Seattle Seahawks have not been They're not getting off the gas. They've been throwing the ball aggressively. That's why Tyler Lockett has played so well in fantasy football thus far. The Seattle Seahawks offense is also on fire. This is a meeting of 2 teams that I believe could put on a high-scoring affair this week in Minnesota. Next up, we have quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders, Derek Carr, going up against the Miami Dolphins. Carr and the Raiders are on a warpath in the AFC. I had no idea that this Raiders team was going to end up being this good. It felt like, hey, they do have all these weapons, right? They have Henry Ruggs, they have Hunter Renfrow, and they have Bryan Edwards, but are any of those guys big name receivers? No. They don't have a true alpha wide receiver. Now, maybe it is Henry Ruggs that's going to be seeing the targets. Maybe Bryan Edwards is the guy who looked relatively good in week 1 and week 2, but they still have Darren Waller, who is one of the best tight ends in the NFL, if not the best tight end in the NFL. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and crown the guy as the best tight end in the National Football League, but you could make an argument that he is one of the best tight ends in the NFL. So even without having those pieces, even without Josh Jacobs last week up against a tough Pittsburgh Steelers defense, Derek Carr finishes quarterback number 6, going 28 for 37 for 382 passing yards and 2 total touchdowns in the game. Now, this week up against the Miami Dolphins is not a cupcake matchup. The Buffalo Bills went into Miami last week and rolled us up. I'm a Dolphins fan. That's why I say us. I understand I'm not on the team. That's just how I speak about them in this video. So they rolled the Dolphins up. They beat them down. But will that happen against the Raiders? If Tua doesn't play, probably. Because the defense at the beginning of the game up against the Bills, they looked like they gave a fuck. They looked like they were like, you know what? We could beat the Bills. We could potentially beat the Bills. And then Jacoby Brissett's in the game and they're not able to move the ball. And then the defense just goes to sleep. They don't do anything. So even with this being a tough defensive matchup, I think Carr could easily dominate in this matchup. And that should be clear based upon what he did last week up against a stout Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And pick up Derek Carr right now because not only do you want him this week, but you're probably going to want him in the future, and especially if this Las Vegas Raiders team continues to play so well. But before we get on into the number 3 streaming quarterback of the week, I'd like to give you guys a word from our sponsor over at Yahoo. Start the NFL season off right now with Yahoo Daily Fantasy. To celebrate, we have a brand new exclusive deal thanks to our partnership with Yahoo, where you guys can get 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum. You heard that right, 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum. To qualify, you need to be a new user to Yahoo, sign up for an account using the link in the description down below, deposit, and play. That is it. Yahoo will send us your name after you play in your first paid contest, and we'll reach out via email with your coupon. If you want immediate access right now, that's okay as well, because all you have to do is email us today at support@awesemo.com, and we'll set you guys up ASAP. Just to emphasize, this offer is for new Yahoo users only, so please make sure that you guys sign up using the link in the description, and you guys get that free 2 months of Awesemo Plus Platinum, which will help you dominate on Yahoo Daily Fantasy. So back on into the video. Next up, we have Teddy Two Gloves, Teddy Bridgewater, quarterback of the Denver Broncos, going up against the New York Football Jets. Now, Teddy Bridgewater, in my opinion, is just one of the most boring quarterbacks in the NFL. At least I thought. But now on Denver, it seems like a new bit of Teddy Bridgewater has been unleashed, and Teddy Bridgewater has been tearing it up. In week number 2, he was the quarterback number 10, completing 26 of 34 passes for 328 passing yards and 2 total tugs in the game, doing so up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. This week, he gets the Jumbo Jets, like I said, and that Jets defense is bad. This is one of the premier matchups you could have as a starting quarterback in the NFL, especially with Teddy Bridgewater, who just torched another bad defense in the Jacksonville Jaguars for, like I said, 300 plus yards and 2 total touchdowns. Mac Jones, to me, didn't look overly impressive up against the Jets. I thought, hey, this is a plus matchup. Mac Jones will be unleashed. Sure, he throws for some yards, but he doesn't really do anything. Mac Jones was kind of in the game manager scenario, whereas Teddy Two Gloves here is looking to blow the back out of the New York Football Jets defense, which is exactly what the Patriots did last week to the Jets team, winning 25-6. So projecting another top 10 performance out of Bridgewater is entirely plausible this week up against the Jets. Even though they lost Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton finally started to hit that groove. Courtland Sutton looked amazing. He's looking like he's returning to his 2019 form, which is going to even further help elevate Bridgewater's potential week in and week out. So I love Teddy Two Gloves this week up against the Jets. Next up, we have a quarterback that I have made fun of ad nauseum. I do not like this guy, but at the end of the day, the accountant himself, Daniel Jones of the New York Giants, he gets the Atlanta Falcons, and he looked good up against the Washington football team. And a lot of the reason why he's so good in fantasy football is because fantasy football is very different to real life. In real life, Daniel Jones is far from an elite quarterback. But in fantasy football, Daniel Jones running the ball for a zillion yards every single game elevates him so highly in fantasy football. Jones and the Giants fought well up against the Washington football team defense last week, and maybe that Washington football team defense is a little bit overrated because they haven't looked great in their first 2 showings of the season. You would expect a great defense to shut down Jason Garrett and the Giants. Jones threw the ball 32 times for 22 completions for 249 yards and a touchdown. That doesn't sound too great, right? But he also led the fucking team in rushing because for some reason, Saquon Barkley looks perfectly fine, but just sit him down for a majority of the game. I don't understand it. I don't know what's going on there. And I don't really expect Saquon Barkley to have a huge workload this week either. So, with that said, Jones had 95 yards and a touchdown rushing. So, this matchup with the rushing upside going up against the Falcons leaves Jones to potentially be one of the better starting quarterbacks in the week for fantasy football. And Kenny Golladay has basically been an afterthought. I don't get this at all. They bring in the Brinks truck, they back it up, they give him all of this money, right, for Danny Dimes to have his number 1 option, Kenny Golladay. Kenny Golladay is on the sideline chewing out who I thought was Daniel Jones. It appears that he was actually yelling at Jason Garrett. And then it comes out that he was yelling at Jason Garrett. He calls Jason Garrett JG, which tells you exactly what you want to know about how little these players respect Jason Garrett. They don't even call him coach. But maybe that's not a bad thing in your mind. I don't know. Just from the outside looking in, that seems a little bit weird. But even without Kenny Golladay, Sterling Shepard's playing perfectly fine. This offense is going to play quite well up against the Atlanta Falcons, you would expect. Now, Daniel Jones is a lot like Jameis Winston in a way where there's games where Daniel Jones plays really well, like last week up against the Washington football team. Like I said, 249 passing yards and a passing touchdown with 95 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. But then there's the other games where Danny Dimes, sure, he throws for 240 yards, passes a touchdown, but he also fumbles the ball twice because the guy has butterfingers. So there's always a bit of risk when you're starting Daniel Jones. So final quarterback here on the docket. Before we get on in to the final quarterback, I would like to let you guys know that if you are looking for season-long fantasy football coverage, then we have you covered. Our NFL Express Weekly Pass is available today for only $3.95, and it is more expansive than ever, and it includes access to our trade value tool, strength of schedule tool, and fantasy streaming helper. With that, you will also get access to our NFL DFS player and ownership rankings, access to our expert Slack, and everything we have to offer for NFL DFS Showdown and single game contests. New this year to the package, as well as our projected ownership and optimal lineup probabilities for the tiered contests on DraftKings. Head on over to Awesemo Plus join page and pick up your pass for only $3.95. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Again, for only $3.95. Pretty solid deal, if you ask me. So final player here, we got the man, the mono man, Sam Darnold, quarterback of the Carolina Panthers, going up against the Houston Texans in Houston on Thursday Night Football. After Mr. Sam Darnold ends up getting traded from the Jets, it looks like he's just a completely different guy, leaving Adam Gase in the dust, leaving back the stink that involves the New York Football Jets organization, and now Sam Darnold, he's a new man. The Panthers are coming off a heater, a dominant victory up against the Saints, winning 26-7 after the Saints in week number 1 rolled the Green Bay Packers. Sam Darnold threw for 35 times for 26 completions with 2 tugs and an INT in that game. This matchup up against the Texans is one of the juicy matchups as well, just like playing up against the Jets. Despite their defense looking like the 85 Bears in week number 1, I'm referring to the Texans here, up against the Jaguars, they didn't look too great last week up against the Cleveland Browns. So I expect Mr. Sam Darnold to roll the Texans in that matchup, and I expect that Davis Mills doesn't look that good. We need to hope, though, that Davis Mills is able to fight back into this game to put up just a semblance of a comeback in order for Sam Darnold to really pay off, because if that's not the case, if they're up like 32-0, then they'll probably just run the ball for the half of the game. But then again, if that is the outcome of the game, you expected Sam Darnold to play really good in the first half anyways. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure that you guys hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, me and the guys over at the Awesemo Fantasy Football YouTube channel put out content every single day. I'd also like to ask that if you guys enjoy looking at that sports betting as well, you might want to subscribe to the Awesemo Odds channel. You can find the link in the description of this video. So go ahead, subscribe now, turn the notification bell on, and enjoy what we have in store for sports betting. I love you guys all. Please make sure that if you would like to follow me on Twitter at NotoriousFNTSY. I love you guys all so much. And again, let me know who your guys' #1 streaming quarterback is for week number 3 of the 2021 fantasy football season. As always, guys, stay safe and goodbye.